everybody likes to act like they don't know what they're doing, but they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly that they're not performing. And so they have some ingrained guilt upon that, and they want to throw it on you because I am performing. You are performing.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And we had a little bit of a problem this morning. We were supposed to have our friend Travis on today, and Travis had a family thing happen and we'll have to reschedule. I know everybody was just tuning in thinking, where's Travis? Where's Travis? However, folks, you are in for a special treat because our good buddy Scott, who apparently just sits around the house and waits for me to call him, and say, hey, Scott, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, nothing. Come on, let's do a podcast. And so we got
I was gonna make a joke about Scott being the reigning, defending Cam and Otis show / 10X Your Team champion most times on here. And you know what we say about athletes: sometimes the best ability is availability, and Scott's available.
Wow, I don't know if that's
I'm leaving, so good having you guys on the show. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, so much for doing Otis a favor today. Good Lord.
Yeah, I guess it depends on which side of the table you're standing on today, if whether or not that was a wow, thank you for being here, or yeah, we had to settle.
Yeah, well, at least when I'm available, I'm punctual, Cam. So,
all right, there we go. All right.
That's right.
Yep.
Folks, when you do this stuff, and we do 400 of them plus and continue on, you always have we always talk about the green room, and maybe one of these days we'll figure out how to do the VR green room, and part of the reason you have a green room is because things just don't always turn it on and go. You got to have, it's like the glow plugs in your diesel engine. You got to turn the key. Everybody knows about that, right? No. Oh my goodness.
That's just you, Mr. Diesel. Yep.
Well, I knew it before I had a diesel.
Yeah, everybody knows that. Come on.
It's common knowledge. There's glow plugs in a diesel engine because diesel engines are different than gas. So that's
why they have glow plugs.
Well, that's part of the reason they have glow plugs. So, but in what happens with a diesel engine, the reason you get more torque, going into physics here, fellas, reason you get more torque in a diesel engine is because you have more compression. There is more compression, more power generated in the explosion in that piston cylinder, and that causes a lot of pressure. And what we decided to interrogate Scott about today is partnerships, because partnerships, when you put two people together, I don't care how well they get along, pressure is increased because they're two different people. Mm-hmm. I mean, even
twice the energy.
Yeah, twice the energy. And I would love to see somebody needs to write a letter and email it to me. A study on identical twin partnerships, business partnerships, and see, because that would be an interesting thing to see. Probably not a whole lot of them, but it's Scott and I have been friends for a long time. We're always tossing around business ideas of working together. We've had our partners and teammates, and I think what it really amounts to is you can't get there alone, but man, sometimes you don't want to get there with that dude. How do you handle that, Scott, when it turns into the man, I just don't want to do it with that guy anymore.
My answer, cut bait all the time. You're the only business partner that I've had survivable. I don't know if it's because we're both Green Berets, share some commonality in business or what, but I've gone through partners like Imelda Marcos went through shoes. I feel like sometimes, right? Like I go through partners quite a bit, and the problem is, so Dave Ramsey has this story on True Leadership, right, about like the Budweiser draft horses, the big gigantic horses, and one can pull 8,000 pounds or whatever. I'll probably muck up the math, but so you think that when you put two together, when they're the right ones that work well together, they would pull 16,000, but they actually pull 21,000 plus pounds because they work better together. And that analogy sounds great, but I've never found that to be true. And minus Otis, there's my caveat, right? In any partnership that I've ever had, and Otis will tell you, I've had several. I bring 100% energy. It seems like they bring a degree less for every point over 100 that I add to the partnership, multiplied by 10 on their side. So if I bring 110, they bring 80. If I bring 120, they bring 70 or 60. It's just they tend to draft off your efforts instead of adding to and enabling your success. And that sounds negative, so I'll defend that as we go on, but don't want to start on a negative note.
Well, I was going to say with that, I think the thing that comes to mind for me is how obvious is it when you're not working together well? Because I think there's some times where it's, it is hey, there's a clear not match here. You're not putting in the energy that I'm matching, those kind of things. But then also, I think there's a lot of more insidious business partnerships. I've told the story of, my time with Cobra Valley and, just not being on the same page with the CEO and how that just blew up down the road. And I think those insidious ones can be kind of tricky. Could you talk some on that, Scott, of, finding those small cracks that are going to be fissures later on?
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? Like, if you take an insidious partnership and you start to really kind of dissect what it is, the first thing I'll tell you is watch out for excuses. When your partner starts making copious excuses all the time, I'm in the middle of something right now with an existing partner who there's a lot of passive aggressive tones coming out with excuses. And so every deliverable that we agree upon, he fails to reach the deliverable on time, excuses. And when called out with the excuses, tends to add condescension coming my way and more excuses. So it's like, dude, I've done everything that I'm telling you I will do. I'm not saying I'm a man of honor and you're not, but I will at least communicate. So I think the very first thing for finding insidious partnerships is a lack of communication is occurring, or when the communication is far from positive, is confronting, is negative, is condescending, and they justify apathetic actions. And so here's the thing, right? The secret sauce that nobody will tell you. Everybody likes to act like they don't know what they're doing, but they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly that they're not performing. And so they have some ingrained guilt upon that, and they want to throw it on you because I am performing, you are performing. So they mask their non-performing abilities with antipathy towards you who are performing as if you're doing something wrong by being a person of integrity and honoring the commitments that you make.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I'm thinking, it all comes back to I think the foundation of the partnership itself. And, people will talk about, well, I do it with a handshake and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, that's great. That's the honor thing. I agree. But you know what? When you shake that dude's hand, you're not delineating this and that and this and that and this and that, because there's a lot of this and that in a business in a partnership, right? I mean, you are. I think the problem becomes this assumption, the assumptions that, well, I thought you were going to do that. No, I thought you were going to do that, and then the unwillingness to admit that my assumption that you are going to run the marketing, develop social media posts or whatever, right, is I take offense because, well, I just assume that's what you always do. Well, no, and I think that's what really happens in these partnerships. That because I'm thinking about one too, and I'll share with you. I'm thinking about another one with another business, and yeah, I'd like to do it, but then I started thinking, well, how do we which eggs are we putting in which carton?
Mhm.
And yeah, complicated. Yeah. But it's important too for it to work.
I think there's an interesting piece there talking about the handshake. One of the things it brings to mind is, the handshake idea and, covering all of those different aspects, making sure you've hashed out that foundation, how meaningful that is for the partnership. The comparison keeps coming to mind, and, I'm not the first one to make this comparison, but of like a business partner, like a marriage, right? And one of the things that I think is really interesting that I think we would all agree on in our marriages and, relationships in general like that is there's a commitment as the mechanism that there is an aspect of it's like, no, we are committed to this, therefore we will fix those different things. I think there's an interesting aspect there of what about in a business partnership like that? You don't want to just jump on and go, hey, I'm going to commit to everything and Scott's going to keep screwing it up and I'm going to keep coming back and it's okay because, I'm committed to Scott. You don't want to go through that. But at the same time, Scott, what you're talking about, cut bait, to take the dating analogy, you're never going to find a wife that way. So I'm really curious what that balance is of, getting into those details, because it's good to get into the details with the right person. But at the same time, there is just that foundation of the commitment to the process.
Well, so I've been married 23 years plus now. Same woman, only marriage I've ever had, only marriage I ever want to have. And, we made
I
some
had to
simple.
laugh at that because I had that joke yesterday with another guy I was talking to. Said, I've been married 33 years, and just the way he said it is like, no, not cumulative. It was all to the same woman.
All to the same woman, yeah. And the reason I start off with that is we have 3 children, 2 boys and a daughter, and the boys are 21 and 17, and the daughter is 6. And so my joke is that we still like each other, right? But when I tell people I have a 6-year-old and a 21-year-old, they think I started a second family or got divorced and is something else, right? But going back to what I was going to say, when my wife and I were dating, we looked at each other. We set a few ground rules, right? And this is going to sound obnoxious, and I'm not trying to be that guy.
It's exactly the answer I was looking for, though.
But we set some ground rules, right? I'm like, I never will take you for granted, and I'm expecting that you never take me for granted, right? I have needs and desires for life and in general. You have needs and desires. We need to be able to communicate those needs and desires. But one of the things that, and if this irritates the audience, I apologize, but I'm like, look, if we have kids, I'm not going to let myself go and get fat, and I don't expect you to let yourself go and get fat either, right? So, let's keep it. I'm not saying that we have to be gym bunnies and work out and have shredded Atlas bodies or whatever, right? But let's keep ourselves into the marriage so that there is a chance of intimacy, right? At some point in time. And that works out pretty well because I have a 6-year-old. But one of the things that I always tell my son, speaking of this, is my sons will laugh if they were in the room with me right now. And I started the sentence, never underestimate they would finish it with either the stupidity of people or the laziness of people. And again, that sounds like I'm a super negative person, but if you don't, for partnerships and marriages both, right? There's an aspect to marriage. Obviously, all 3 of us are married and all 3 of us are parents, but there's an intimate aspect to marriage. It doesn't exist in a business partnership. So there's a lot more leeway for, I'll just put up with Cam's BS because it's Cam. He's busy, right? And I can turn that part of me off at 5 p.m., 4:30 p.m., whenever I close my business doors or activities for the day, and say like, all right, well, Cam, we'll get to it tomorrow. That doesn't exist in a marriage because you're there, wake up in the morning, go to bed at night, and it's more inclusive. So when we compare business partnerships and marriage partnerships, there's so many aspects to marriage that are not present in business, nor should they ever be, because it's an absolute recipe for disaster. And when you think of the stupidity and laziness of people, I can't tell you, and I'm not a martyr. I'm not the, oh my God, I did it again and you can't keep up with me or whatever here, but people will ride your coattails and think that they deserve the success that you've created for yourself because all of a sudden they've hitched your wagon to your train, right? And it doesn't work that way. So you don't get to be instant successful because all of a sudden we put our names together. You don't get, and I gave back 50% ownership of a global company just a few months ago to my business partner because I said, look, there is no way for me to monetize this for myself without punishing you. And so I'm not going to ruin this personal relationship that we have, understanding the difference, right? By trying to keep this business partnership alive because I can already tell you where it's going because I'm feeling it. I'm feeling irritated with you all the time. I'm looking for any excuse that I can not to get on a phone call with you, not to email with you, not to work with you at all. And my other side businesses and main focuses are sucking as a result. So I'm just cutting bait, giving it all back to you at a massive financial cost to me, an opportunity for me, and saying, I value, because my priorities are clear, this, not that.
You brought up something that I just keep going back to in the marriage analogy of the business partnership and intimacy in marriage, without us all getting weird and that sort of stuff.
Welcome to Sex Talk with Scott. No, we're not going down
Yeah,
that rabbit hole.
God help us. But it is, well, yeah, there are things in a business partnership that you can't have that are in a marriage. But I wonder what fills that gap, because it's still a partnership,
Mhm.
and there's still that need. And both of y'all, much more than me, have that experience with the partnership gone bad. Uh, and I wonder, when you look at the comparison chart, if you will, marriage, blah blah blah. These 10 things are critical for successful marriage. What are those 10 things that are critical for a successful partnership, and where they cross over, the Venn diagram of them?
Well, the
I'll tell
first
you,
one's got
sorry.
it. I was going to say an
Oh,
easy one, and it's the answer you'll throw out and make me throw out every time, which is communication. I think just actually Scott's already talked about this, and I'll throw it back over to you after this. But yeah, the just starting with communication, being able to have those hard conversations is like 90% of the work in both of them, I would say.
yeah. I mean, again, I have business ideas. Otis will tell you, I'm not even exaggerating, probably 5 times a day. And I take lots of walks with my wife, and I'll pitch my ideas to my wife. And she is encouraged by me, as is Otis and other people, my trusted people that I go to, who I view as advisors and partners, to tell me. I came to Otis recently with something, probably 6 weeks ago, and said, "Hey, Otis, I have this idea." And he was like, "Ugh." I mean, I could almost like hear the cringe over the phone. And I could have gotten mad and said, like, how dare you question my idea? This is going to be genius. But my wife had the exact same reaction coincidentally, right? So I'm like, maybe
That's
God is
why I
telling me
like her so
something here.
much.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you the number one thing that should exist in business. Well, it doesn't. Here's what I'll say. You don't enter a marriage, and if you do, you're a moron. Full stop, plain and simple, thinking that you're going to change the other person, right?
Mhm.
Is that a fair statement? You
Oh yeah.
propose when you are in love with somebody and you decide willingly that you want to spend the rest of your life with them and build a life together. So I
Mhm.
think we could all 100% agree. Cam didn't enter his marriage trying to change his wife. She's not going to try and maybe minor changes, right? I'm not saying that we're all perfect or anything like that. The last perfect person walked
Yeah,
the earth 2,000
there's
years
a
ago.
different there's a difference between growth and change, is what I like to say on
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
But I find a lot of business partners won't communicate all of their. Like I had one, let's call her Devon, just for the sake of argument. And Devon, as a business partner, kept trying to tell me, these people need to put sweat equity into this, and sweat equity, and you have to understand. And all that meant was she wanted me to work for free on her stuff in whatever. And so she kept trying to say, "No, Scott, this isn't right. You got to change. You got to change. You can't say this." For example, I very famously, and I put this out on LinkedIn, I got in trouble with my team before I got rid of my team at DOL Coach, because I told them, "Look, you can either be part of the problem in life or part of the solution. If you're on LinkedIn and you have me as an employer, you are not allowed to put pronouns after your name, period, or I'll fire you. Like it or hate it, whatever." And she goes, "Scott, you have to understand." No, I don't have to understand. And I just had the same exact conversation 5 years later with my current business partner about some other things that, as a devout Christian, I don't believe at all in my soul, who's now trying to change me and telling me some condescending and insulting things that I'm wrong in this. So
Mhm.
why in business do we feel the need to constantly change that partner, change that partner, change that partner? I enter in a partnership with Otis and Tribe and Purpose because I love the mission and what you're doing. And I give my time freely and willing knowing that we're going to grow together, or it'd have been a good idea that never went anywhere. And we have some efforts going on right now that I think will grow very prosperously. We've had several efforts that have failed flat in their face, right? So,
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing. The grow and the change, because we are human, and humans do change whether you know it or not, folks. That's happening right this minute. Uh, you but some of these things were there all along.
Yep.
So you have to, especially when you talk about values. We talk about this all the time at Tribe and Purpose. Is your personal values are the foundation, and your personal values have to be aligned with the business values, and the business values, and that goes for both partners and truthfully everybody in the team.
mm-hmm.
So how could things like that all of a sudden, which you just mentioned, without diving into it too deep and disclosing all this stuff, the dirt, how can you, what changed? Obviously something changed, because it shouldn't have been a surprise, right?
No.
I mean, that's who you are. That's who I am. It shouldn't be a surprise. So you have to ask yourself, and that, in the reflection of what's going on, so that we learn, and don't make those same mistakes again. What changed? What was different? What happened? I mean,
I don't think, so one, growth is driven internally, right? Internal drivers for growth make people successful. I read 100 books a year because I want to be very well read. I like reading much more so than I enjoy watching TV, minus, things like the Super Bowl or soccer or a specific series or something, right? But I love reading.
what
Soccer, yeah.
soccer?
But it's got to be driven by like internal things. If my wife was telling me all the time, hey, honey, I want you to read 100 books a year, and I hate reading, right? Then that's an external force trying to make me grow into something that I clearly am not. Now, if she said, hey, I want to start binge watching Netflix every night before we go to bed, so put your Kindle down, again, external driver for something else, right? And that's where we're necessitate that communication. But I think that when we enter these partnerships, we know those issues are there. I've known that my friends and some partners historically have had lots of issues, and yet we overlook them out of a desire, right? And we overlook them knowingly. I can admit, admitting that I'm hugely fallible, that I knew some people that I very closely aligned with and trusted as partners weren't potentially the right fit, and yet I convinced myself out of some wish and desire that we could grow this thing together. And another part of it is, and I don't mean to sound egotistical, but I tend to see what people can be once I get to know them. And so I want to take them, right? I'm the guy that the first day of martial arts training is 7 years old. I want to be a black belt. The first day that I ever thought about joining the military, I want to be a Green Beret, right? And I achieved both. So I'm the guy that when I see that potential, I want to almost grab somebody by the scruff of the neck and go, you could be great. Let's go, right? And we're going to do this together. But then when I grab them, they start digging their heels in and they start dragging them. And then they get mad at me because I'm like, but you can be awesome. And they don't want to be awesome. But I overlook that myself. And I've had this happen at least half a dozen times with people who are, I'm just going to let you do all the work, Scott. I'm just going to hitch my little wagon onto this train and let you do all the work. I'd appreciate if you paid me. I want a percentage of whatever you make. I'm not going to do anything to enable your success, but you go ahead and make money. And so we overlook their inadequacies out of our desires of what they can be. That's both individuals and entities as we join them and grow them together.
It reminds me of a little bit of like the logical fallacy of, it's why people get into, gambling and lottery tickets and those kind of things, is because you see the possible win and you equate that as like the actual value of it's like, hey, in my head, I got a 10% chance of winning on this lottery ticket because that's the only number I can wrap my head around. If you told me it was 0.0001, that hurts my head. It doesn't matter. 10%. That sounds about right. And
it's like
so
Jim
it's like,
Carrey and Dumb and Dumber, right? And so there's a 1 in 100. I'd say more like 1 in a million. So you're saying there's a chance,
right? So there is a chance, and I'm the one. I'm going to get. It's my story. I'm the one to get it on my chance. And so that $1 million, well, that's got to be worth at least $100,000. I'll spend the $10 on it, right? There's that weird math that goes into that.
It's
well, I think there's a very
your betting parlays you do. right?
Hey, that is my $10 tax every month to the great people at DraftKings, and I have fun with it. All right, that is it. And I know exactly what I'm doing with that. I happily send it off to them when my favorite UFC fighters get knocked out. But no, but you know the misunderstanding of what the value is versus what it actually is, right? And what the perceived value versus the real value. And I think we do that with partners. And I'm even thinking in my coaching world, you know, I've done that with athletes before, where you see it and you're like, this guy could be so good. And then you just overlook the fact that he's lazy. And it's like, oh my gosh, you ever notice that he finishes last in every sprint? Like, yeah, there's some skills there. Yeah, he could be great if he committed to it, but he's never going to commit. And I think there's this like optimism as a leader, which is very important. I think we'd all agree that it's really
100%.
important to be optimistic as a leader. But then if you look at it and you take that optimism to 100% and just completely discount everything else, then you set yourself up for failure, like you're talking about there, Scott, where you're just completely ignoring those factors because you're thinking about how great they could possibly be.
Well, Thomas Edison said it great, right? He said opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And but what we tend to do, one of my current business partners, I know he's a lazy SOB in his soul. I complain about him procrastinating all the time. I've done so to Otis for years. And yet we do these offsite working groups or we get together and I get re-energized by his passion in an idea. And I convince myself, oh my gosh, this is going to be different. Right. And it's almost like an abused spouse or something. Right. I'm not calling myself an abused spouse or minimizing it, but it's like he's changed. It's going to be different, now.
But the similarities are there. They exist.
The similarities are there. We convince ourselves as to that opportunity. And then I dress up. I get the overalls on. I'm putting on my working boots, right? I don't ever comb my hair anyway, but I put on a hat and I'm out there like I'm digging. I'm starting to build things. And then I look back. I'm like, dude, what the hell? Come on.
Well, I've just got to finish this lemonade, Scott.
You got to understand. We got a new Facebook marketing campaign that we got to fund somewhere. And so then we have come to Jesus conversations, right? And I say, this is the last straw. If you want to be, why are we doing it this way? And then, so we have to admit that we're guilty in this as well. And that's why I am now hugely protective of almost to like I'm a shell and closet hermited type guy. I don't get to know anybody in my new area. I don't have any friends down here. I'm social. I talk to people. I don't feel sorry for myself, right? But I am hugely selective of who I give my time to now. And if it's standing outside of my daughter's pickup at school and I'm having a conversation, I can make people laugh. That's easy because I'm not very bright. I can make them, I can introduce myself to them, the old Intel guy in me or whatever. But as soon as I leave that, it's like back to the comfort of my cigar, my dog, and my walks, right? Like family time and my dog is all I want. Once bitten, 18 times bitten, 19 times shy, right?
Well, if you train that dog Bandit to not bite you might learn.
Bandit's my boy, man. He's awesome.
I think the key element. Well, I mean, of course, communications is key. I think it's truly a reflection of ourselves. What we are, we reflect on others. Whether it's in a marriage, friendship, business, partnership. By the way, folks, if you're not friends with your business partner, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
If you can't go have a beer with the dude or go hiking or play golf, whatever.
Or if you're looking for excuses to get away from them, you're also doing something wrong.
but in the end, our relationships are driven by how we see ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we all have to come to terms with, whether it's business or whatever, is that how I look at that person is how I see myself. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem because we try to project ourselves onto that person. And I think that can become that ideological perception of the person that, oh, well, he's gonna do the social media stuff. He's gonna click and like and comment and share and then create this and da 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 da. We're assuming that because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think therein is a deeper problem, pre-communication problem, that if we don't understand that,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah. So I was just going to say with that, I mean, really the connection back to the marriage comparison is really big to me on that, because it reminds me of, you talk about, it's like you find your better your better half, and you growing together and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you are to just put it bluntly, you are like a pretty broken person, and you never work on yourself, and you are only working on yourself inside of that context, that's not very sustainable either. That foundation isn't very strong. You have to do the work yourself in order to be able to grow together and those kind of things. And that's exactly what you're talking about with the business partnership there. We've talked about it before, the idea of, most behaviors that we have are just coping mechanisms from the environments we grew up in, those kind of behavioral quirks like that. Well, if you don't understand how you behave, and you don't understand what kind of person you work best around, then you're not going to be able to build a good partnership there. And Scott, I can see you're ready to go, so I'll throw it to you.
No, I mean, you're right. And the phrase, right, that you're talking about is self-aware. And if you're not, I'm not talking about being cripplingly, whatever word there, right, overly self-aware to where it just handicaps your activities, right? Like, I know I have a ton of faults. Like, I am fully aware that, and when I teach, when I coach, when I consult, when I whatever, I don't let people first of all, I hate the word expert, right? Because if you're an expert, like you're telling me you can learn nothing more about that topic at all. You're like the subject matter expert in your field. Like, I don't think I've ever arrived. And, I love the saying by the SEALs, to give them some credit. The only easy day was yesterday, right? So, I love learning every day, starting every day. I'm reading a book by Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee, called Be Like Water. And, he talks about not only does water fill any void that it fills, but it runs down the easiest crack to get out of something, down your wall, your drywall, whatever. But when Bruce Lee had the epiphany of water, he saw a bird, he was hitting it, he was so mad, and he saw a bird fly over as he was digesting. It's like, I'm punching water and it's not reacting at all. But then he saw the bird's reflection in the water and said, water mirrors this environment without becoming this environment as well. And so the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back, is out there for a reason, right? And we all know it because we eat so much crap from these partnerships. And, oh, you didn't do the socials again today? I'll do them. Oh, you didn't do this again today? I'll do it. And then we start to and all of a sudden it's like, and we just snap and go, I'm tired. And then, but it always hits them. I thought you were happy doing all the work. Of course I'm not happy doing all the work. Like, this is a 50-50 partnership, and you're not bringing anything to the table at the moment.
Well, and you know what, as continued, and I'm going to bring it up now since we started talking this, that I always find ironic is in the startup world, and particularly pitch decks and with VCs, is how VCs tend to, at least the ones that I know and the pitches I've been to, tend to frown on the startup entrepreneur who is operating by himself. It's this weird sort of thing, and there's a lot of irony in that. And actually, I have a friend of ours.
Can I throw a theory on that? Because this just clicked for me, and I think only in the conversation of the marriage comparison I see it. But I think there's a little bit of the, like, you never dated anybody. You're what? Like, I think that's a part of it. I really do think so.
2 is 1, 1 is none, right? I think that's part of their belief as well. So yeah.
I mean, my example of this also, though, is our friend Luke Hutchison. When we haven't had Luke on, God, probably 3-4 years now on the show. Perfect Venue. Luke, lived here in the Springs, and he moved his business to the Valley because he had been told he needed to find a partner. Well, I think there were some other reasons, maybe the sexiness of living in the Valley and with an IT startup.
Twist my arm, right? Like, you're going to force me to move to Silicon Valley.
A little bit of that, but I mean, the true reason, the external reason that he gave was, well, I got to find a partner for my business. I need to find a CTO, not hire, find a CTO partner. And that's because that's what he had been poked by VCs here, Front Range, Colorado, is, oh, you don't have a partner? Oh, huh. Well, you can't be successful, which goes back to my theory or the wonderful proverb of, if you want to go far, go together. The first part of that is, if you want to go fast, go alone. Want to go far, go together. And I think there's still truth in that, but that doesn't mean you have to enter into a partnership.
But if you look at all the lore, right? Since we're talking tech, Jobs and Wozniak, you had Sergey Page and Brin, right, from Google. You had Bill Gates and C. Ballmer at Microsoft, right? So there's this whole belief that, like, oh, it's the pair that build the perfect thing that's going to really. But then you have Jeff Bezos. There is no Bezos and whatever, and then there's Elon Musk. And there's no Musk and company, right? It's Elon, like him or hate him. And I've read the biography. I think he's fascinating as a person. You can do it on your own if you're the right person. And laziness dictates to VCs and everybody else, like, oh, well, we can see all the flaws. You need a tech better half here to marry into to get that partnership going on so that we know and have a better chance of your success, right? If somebody were to tell me that, I would almost slap them. I'd be so angry. Because I can do almost, yeah. If you tell me that I need somebody to better me, no.
People have kind of hinted at that with Pocket Layer, and I'm like, no. That's also why I'm not even bothering with pitching.
So are you saying they want to hitch their wagon to the Pocket Litter train?
Yeah.
All the work, all the money. Yeah, of course they do.
No.
They're not looking at coming in. Yeah. No. Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like, oh, I'll put sweat equity into this, Otis, and I'll help you do this, and I'll help you do that for this much percentage. And then we go, okay, hook, and we go, but you're not doing anything. Oh, I still want my percentage of. But you're not doing anything. It's almost like there's charlatans out there. And the phrase I use in clients all the time that I hate, I don't hate the word agendas, but everybody seems to have secret agendas that they're wearing like on a t-shirt, right? Just like I have a Nike symbol there, but it'd be their agenda. And they act like you can't see it. And it's like, I know you want part of my business that I have slaved over for 5 years and my network that I have built for my whole adult life and everything that I've done. I've read 575 books in the past 5 years. You've read 2. You want the knowledge that I gained from reading all these books. You want access to, and yet you're acting like I can't see the agenda of what you want from me printed right there on your chest. So again, flip it back to communication. When you tell me that's your agenda, I have a retiring fifth group, E8, who I'm helping business coach pro bono. Love what she's doing, love her ideas, and she's about to really. I mean, I think she's going to be pretty successful in what she's doing. It's pretty unique, and I love it, right? And I tell her, like, people are going to want to tell you all the things, and they have an agenda. Hire me as a coach. Hire me as this. Hire me. How much money have you been sold on search engine optimization, marketing, all the other snake oil? PR, all those things, right, for those people that promise here and deliver way down here. The agendas. The agendas are alive and well. And I'm just to a point now, I turned 50 in a few months, that I'm not falling for it anymore. Like, nice try. Fool me once, twice, 14 times, 15th time, I got you.
And there's
16.
There's
right, 16. Here we go.
Yeah, 16. Maybe 17.
Lucky 16. Here we go.
But I think it's an interesting thing there of, like, there's just the different types of people, different types of people in a team, different types of partners, all those different, personality aspects there. But to kind of put it into just 2 buckets, to oversimplify it a bit, I do think what we're talking about a lot is there's a quality of person who is going to, commit to the project, go above and beyond, be as into it as you are, bring that founder mentality to it. And then there's going to be a group of other people, that bucket of other folks that aren't going to be able to put that in and aren't going to hit that. And my thought usually is that it's like, well, hey, there's a place on the team for folks too. And that is that if you aren't going to be the above and beyond, if you're going to be just checking the boxes, well, then here's the job, and I need you to check these 15 boxes every day. And that's it. And that is all I will ever expect you. But again, it goes back to that communication and recognizing what the person is like with that. I mean, I can even use the example quickly of with like U of A rugby, we talk about this all the time, Dad. We talk about the show at least some, but we have a very unique mission right now of campaigning to build this high performance team to go win a national championship while also still maintaining that club mentality. And we want to have lots of people out there. And we don't want to turn away the people who just love the game, but like, I don't really want to go to lifts, coach. Come on, those kind of things. But there's still an expectation with the team. But there's plenty of those guys we've had the conversation with of like, hey man, you're not going to play. Like, there's like, hey coach, I love it though. I'm fine. I'm hanging out. It's like, cool. We're happy with that. Hey, I'm not giving you equity, right? You're cool. Cool with that. All right, we can move on. And you just got to be able to know which bucket they're in. You
just nailed it, right? I don't attribute any type of nefarious evil to people. I'm an optimistic guy. I mean, mine is coming off pretty negative at the start of the show. Apologies for that, right? But I don't think people are inherently toxic or nefarious or have some evil intent. You said two words there, Cam, that I just written down on my iPad as you were talking, and then you said them both. One is a commitment thing. And people mistake commitment for expectations. And the difference is, right, like that person doesn't know, because I typically fail to communicate my expectations to them. Scott, I'm working my ass off for you, man. I'm on LinkedIn every day. I've made 1,000 phone calls for you. I've done this. So in project management, I teach a difference in like key performance indicators, KPIs, and objectives and key results. KPIs could be the commitment for people, right? You're going to make all these phone calls. You're going to do this. You're going to call. Objectives and key results are, I want sales. Full stop. If your goal objective is $10,000 in sales and you make one phone call and give me $10,000, go home. You're done for the day. I am not going to, we're set. My 17-year-old is a striker in soccer, right? And so some of the midfield on his team might touch the ball 80, 90 times in the game, and he might have 5 touches. Now, if 2 of those 5 touches end up in the back of the opponent's goal and he scores,
yep.
What's better, that you dribbled your ass off 80 or 90 times and didn't contribute to the win directly by scoring a goal, or you touched the ball 5 times and 40% of those times were a goal? Mm-hmm. So when we understand that most people think they're committed, but when you're true type A, when you're a true pursuer of greatness and you want to be successful, their commitment taps out here and we tap out way up here. And the expectations is never able to be met because they think that we're just pariahs and that we're different. And embrace that difference. Be happy. And I'm hugely happy in who I am. I built the life that I always wanted. I get to hang out with my kids, hang out with my wife, smoke cigars, hang out with my dog, do the things I want, and make sales. My objectives are to have a good quality of life after service, whatever. Key results are I have a happy family. Right? But people think they're committed, and their level of commitment and ours are two totally different animals.
And, talking about that level of commitment, what it brings to mind for me was something I've talked about on the show before in a similar conversation to this, which is, some marriage advice I got at some point, I don't know who, but it was the idea of, it's like, well, you never want to keep score in a marriage. You never want to be like, well, I did 3 chores, you did 2, therefore I'm better.
I do that all the time.
But so here's my nuance to it, Scott, that I added. Scott, I'm going to give you some good marriage advice then, because I added a layer of nuance to that I think you're going to like a lot more.
I'm joking. Okay. I do not keep scores.
But the nuance I add to that is, well, you should run up the score though. Like I only get to see half the scoreboard, and I'm trying to get my number up. I'm trying to do more. I'm trying to always help more and do more for her. And I don't know what her side of the scoreboard says, but I'm assuming it's a big number, and I'm going to keep running my side up. And in this, like, not in a competition sense if I have to beat her with it, but it's like, I think she is doing so much better than me probably that I have to keep up with it. And I think that's one of the things that you hear people talk about in the context of marriage and in the context of the business partners, which is the best ones are usually the one where you think you both kind of got away with it a bit. Like, I don't know why the hell Scott's staying with me, dude. Scott is amazing. He does all of this stuff. Oh my gosh. And meanwhile, Scott's over there like
that never happens.
And meanwhile, Scott's over there like Cam is doing all this stuff. It's amazing. I am so lucky to have him there. And I think there's a aspect of that's what happens when you have 2 people who are just performing at that very high level.
Well, it's having the hard conversations, right? It's like Otis is a big hunter. So if I said, Otis and I are camping at the ranch, and Otis says, I'm going hunting for dinner, I'm thinking he's going to bring back elk and, we're going to be feasting. And he comes back with like a frog, right? And he went out and gigged a frog and he's like, hey, here's your dinner, man. Like, all right, you went out hunting, but I was, so it's just that communication of expectations as well. And going back to my first comment, not trying to be an a-hole, like, we're not going to get fat. Like, unless there's a medical condition or something, right? Like, I'm not picking on fat people, but we're going to stay in the marriage together and we're going to like each other. And she's my best friend in the world, like I don't keep score with her because I can never keep up to what she brings to the marriage and anything else, right? So no matter how hard I tried, no matter how many tabs I put on my magical chalkboard and whatever, I could never keep up. So I'm blessed to be in this, and I know I'm blessed to be in this. And you should feel the same way about your business partners.
Yep.
And if you don't, even though there's no Christian love and intimacy and more in businesses or than marriage, if you can't wait to get away from that person, as Otis said earlier, or you're like counting the minutes to the next break so that you can go forth and like blow off some steam or, and I've gotten the habit now, post calls to some of my partners, I call your dad, I call Otis, and I'm like, what the hell just happened, right? When you're at that point, you're wrong. You're wrong, and something has to happen to fix it because it's going nowhere. You might think that there's a magic, matrix, right? Blue or red pill that you can swallow that magically fixes the partnership. But at that point, it's dead. And then you have to figure out how to egress effectively and put your money and your time best where it can be spent elsewhere.
I got a bit of a hypothetical I want to throw out, and a little bit behind the curtain. I'm sorry, Dad. I just texted you. I was ready to wrap, and actually, this just came to mind. So there's
please shut Scott up, and we can wrap this thing and go.
Catch him when he's taking a breath. Quick!
No, I need another Scott opinion. So Jessica and I, my wife and I, we did a couples counseling during COVID. There's a community college here that offers free counseling from people trained to be therapists, right? So you could do like 6-month programs for free. We're like, screw it, let's do it. Well, if you know any of the data around couples counseling and those kind of things, it's generally speaking that it works. But the reason that it works is because the people who are likely to go to it are the people who are likely to commit to the marriage and make the changes and all those kind of things there. Is there an aspect of that for a business? Because Scott, as you were talking about the magic pill there, I'm like, well, what is the intervention? And you can literally go to therapy with your business partner and those kind of things. Is that something where we could almost have that same kind of thing where it's like, hey, you want to hit it early because that shows that you're committed to it and it shows that you'll put in the work and that you have the right person there. And if they don't want to go to therapy with you, then you can't start the business with them. What's your thought there, Scott?
So I'll see your therapy scenario and add to it. It's like if your business partner was a raging opioid abuser or alcoholic, right? Do they want to get help and do they want to get clean? And are they going to do the things necessary to get help and be back? If you're in a sexless marriage, and I had a conversation with a Green Beret a couple months ago, who I'm semi-close to, never served with, but he's in a horrifically stupid marriage. Now, all transparencies, 15 years ago, while in first group, he cheated on his wife. He had massive guilt. He came home. He told her. They went to therapy. They did everything. They decided to stay together for this baby that they had. They've now had another baby. And in the last 12 years, he's been intimate with her one time. And he is miserable. And she, from what he tells me, very clearly hates his guts. So he says, but we go to counseling. I said, but she's not willing to put the work in. She clearly hates you, dude. So if my business partner, who I'm very irritated with at the moment, one of my business partners, says, that was dumb, I admit it, I apologize, I'm not going to defend it, I'm going to fix myself, I'm going to fix these things, I know that he can be crazy productive and a genius when he puts his mind to things. Full stop. Otis knows him, so Otis will agree. He can be. If he agrees to do that, and more importantly, doesn't just talk about doing it, but shows me that he can do it, I'll let the partnership continue. Mm-hmm. But just like my friend who's in the horrifically painful marriage, I'm a devout Christian. I don't believe, I shouldn't just rush to divorce or anything. We have too much of that in society. But I'm like, dude, you got to walk away. We get one ride on the roller coaster of life. You deserve at least a modicum of happiness on there, right? You spent 12 years of your life doing everything that you can to make up for your mistake. Now, admittedly, it was a stupid thing to do. It's unforgivable. That's not going to last. But do you deserve to be miserable for all of your life because you did one stupid thing in Thailand?
Yeah. And I think I mean, and of course, in the relationship context, I think it's said many, many times, but it's very true inside the business context is actually taking the action, not just talking about it. Not just, I'll do better. Hey, I'm going to work real hard, Scott. It's like, okay, what are you doing?
Easy, right?
Tell me the specific things you're going to do.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that goes back to the, what does partnership mean? It's a two-way street. I mean, you both have to work on it, no matter what that thing is. Just like I think you have to plant the seed for the communication to happen, the tough conversations to happen, for the, hey man, this is what I'm seeing, because we can be just as guilty sitting over here going, that asshole ain't pulling his weight, and saying those things in our own mind, whether we say them out loud or not. And I think it's more.
Or we say them to the asshole. It's like, start
I
pulling
think
your
it's
weight.
more of a problem that you're not saying it to the asshole.
Amen.
It's like, hey, dude, what the fuck, man? Thought you were going to do this. Why aren't you doing this? I'm doing this over here. It's what's my favorite business owner analogy. It's the business owner that walks out of his office onto the shop floor. And I was just at a great business yesterday in town this would be a perfect place. I don't think anybody would hear him because it was loud as hell on the shop floor. But steps out on the shop floor and goes, does anybody care if the lights are on tomorrow? Do anybody give a shit about being here other than collecting a paycheck? If you don't express that, guess what? That burns a hole in you, and it becomes that thing that eats at you. It becomes irreparable. And I think that is a key piece of this whole thing. And as I was
just going to add on that, and I don't know if I have this phrase completely right, but maybe one of y'all knows it. But unspoken expectations are premeditated complaints. That it's like, if you don't tell people, like same thing, coaching rugby in the business, whatever. If I'm out there and I don't set the expectation, and then they fuck it up, it's not. Why would I just go yell at them? They don't know what they're doing. It's like we talk. Dad, you're making jokes about Scott and Bandit over there. Well, Scott, you're allowed to get mad at Bandit.
Man.
I got you. We're okay. Wait, I got you. Don't worry.
The naked guinea pig was your boy.
No, he's my lesser, but man, he's staring at me now. He's pissed. He's like,
but Scott, we're joking about Bandit biting you. If there's an expectation and a standard, a Bandit cannot bite you, then you can be mad at Bandit for that. If that standard is never set, then you know what? Bandit just bites. Like there's not much to it if you don't ever set the standard, right?
Think of how many passive aggressive couples, and we've all been married long enough and been, around different couples enough, right? Like you go to their house for dinner and the husband or the one of the partners does zero to put food on the table. I mean, pays the paychecks, puts the bills on, whatever, right? Like he contributes or she contributes to the household, but they don't do anything in preparation of the meal. And then sits down and just whines and bitches nonstop about the meal, right? It's that expectation. My older brother does this. He says like, hey, when's dinner? And his wife does all this other stuff. And then he goes, oh, you bought fajitas tonight? I didn't feel like fajitas tonight. It's like, could you have told anybody that you don't feel like fajitas? And so sniping is easy, right? And sniping, and again, go back to the straw that broke the camel's back. They're not in a happy place because there's decades of attitude like that and actions like that. And, actions speak louder than words, but you still have to vocalize the words to tell somebody what your expectations are and when you're displeased. But none of us do because that's confrontational. Or I'm going to look like I'm weak, or I'm going to look like I don't like them, or get over yourself. Get over yourself and have the hard conversations.
Yeah, which brings us back around to KPIs and OKRs, and as hard as I tried in our comparison between marriage and partnership, I could not come up with intimacy as a direct correlation to business partnerships. So I validated that part is what I learned. So Camden, now that you've had your sip of coffee, what'd you learn?
I was trying to think of an example there because I hadn't thought about that one too much. But no, well, first the glow plugs and the diesel. That's they do something there and something with pressure, and I got a little bit there, but no, really interesting. As we're talking there at the end, it came up with the comparison of something that I teach on a lot of the coaching calls we do, is the idea of work-ons that we have in rugby, of creating that space to go work on and get better and those kind of things. Well, I think the therapy, quite a hypothetical question I threw out there, made me think of that what you're talking about there at the end, Scott. Giving that feedback, having that communication is hard when you don't do it ever. And when it's only punitive, when it's only negative. What work-ons do is they create a space where we can actually go collaborate and go get better. And it's not me saying, hey, Scott, you suck. Hey, you come in and saying, hey, Cam, what do you think I can get better at? And there's such a different way of doing that. And so maybe you don't need therapy inside of your business partner, but maybe some work-ons can help with a lot of that, because you get more of that feedback and chance to have that casual feedback without just being punitive.
Scott, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
So real quick, there's a quote I teach in my soft PM course, which is small confrontations keep the big confrontations from being necessary, and hitting them early and after, right? Now I'm going to forget. I think it was Patrick Lencioni said that. I'm not sure. I'm misaligning the quote somehow.
Give it to Patrick. I like him.
Yeah. Patrick, there you go. You're good, man. Welcome. Congrats. I learned you shouldn't keep scoring your marriage, first of all. Like I should stop doing that immediately. No, but it's always enlightening to me that, sometimes we feel like the island of misfit toys, right? Individually, like we're on our own little island of suffering and more. And this is a problem that many of us have. And it's good to learn that, there's sports analogies for this, which we didn't dive into deep enough, right? The work-ons and more are great. And there's marriage lessons in this, and business lessons, and just life lessons overall. So we think of, we started with a business partnerships type of model, but it quickly evolved, and I learned learning different aspects of different things about it. So thank you. And for the record, Bandit's never bit me. He bit your dad once, but he's a blue healer in the mouth. So, and it wasn't hard. So
he was just hurting you.
That's right.
That's what they do.
Unhappy that I wouldn't.
Well, that's why they call them blue healers. I mean, my daughter, when he plays with her, she's 6. He'll have like his whole mouth on her forearm. And I mean, there's no pressure, there's no anything, but that's how they run up behind the cattle and nip their heels. And that's why they're called blue healers.
Well, get in line next time, Dad.
There you go. Yep. Well,
he's trying to train you.
I didn't want to stand that close to Scott anymore. That was
See, Dad, you just weren't committed to the growth, though. That's the thing. Bandit was committed to the growth, to helping to change, and you just weren't committed to the partnership there.
Yeah. Scott,
is that full circle?
I'm gonna move us on. Scott, how do folks find you, get in touch with you, and learn more about DOL Coach and what you got going on there?
DOLcoach.com. We got a bunch of stuff coming up, including an effort that Otis and I have been working on for several months now called the Business Development Mastermind Group. That's launching very soon. We have a lot of interest that's gaining into it. And it's going to be a true referral network that's not predicated in BS. And, to come full circle in Cam's words, we will create a team of partners for you that want to enable your success in the business groups that you're a part of, bringing referrals to you and helping you grow through adding to your efforts instead of in any way detracting to your efforts, and do so cost effectively and putting as much money in your pocket without promising bullshit ROIs and more. So coming soon, DOLcoach.com. We'll be launching that very soon. Otherwise, you can email me at scott@DOLcoach.com, even if you just want to mock me for anything stupid, which was plentiful that I said in the podcast today.
Yes, if I missed any mocking opportunities, please take those up.
Just email CC Otis, and we're all good.
Yeah, in the subject line, put mock, okay? Hey, Scott, brother, it is always good to hang out with you and chat. Really appreciate your time today.
No, you too, bro. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good seeing you, Cam.
Cam, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Scott Kinder, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.